My hair is too long and it's doing a thing, and I kind of like it a little bit. Hello everyone, my name is Lisa, and today I'm bringing you my book review of You by Kepnes. This is a thriller novel told from the perspective of a stalker who meets a girl while he's working in a bookshop and proceeds to fall in love with her and stalks her until he gets her. This book is pretty unnerving. As it's told from the perspective of a stalker, it's very interesting to be in the antagonist's brain, especially since he thinks that everything he's doing is for the greater good, and he thinks he's the good guy, and he's saving her from all of these other terrible things that are happening in her life that aren't really that terrible. But this review is going to have spoilers. For those of you that don't want to know the intricacies of this book and want to read it for yourself, just know that I enjoyed it. I thought it was a really interesting perspective, and I give it a 4 out of 5 stars. For those of you still with me, the stalker's name is Joe, and the girl he is stalking is named Bex. Bex already has a boyfriend that isn't great and doesn't seem to care about her all that much. He's kind of a rich guy that's full of himself and doesn't really care about Beck's feelings. Bex also has a best friend named Peach, who is secretly in love with her and is a really complicated person. Peach makes up diseases and conditions that she has and claims that she's sick and needs Bex's help, and really just commands all of Bex's attention and is very manipulative. Peach I find to be a terrible and very toxic friend, and I don't think she really cares about Beck. She just wants Beck's attention, which ends up being kind of ironic since Bex kind of keeps her around because Peach is obsessed with her, so neither of them are great. Beck has some major sexual issues. There is some pretty explicit sex that happens in this book a few times. She has a lot of daddy issues. She seems to care about her friends, but doesn't really understand self-care, and the self-care that she does is not actually helpful. She's a pushover, and she seems to really only feel powerful when she's trying to seduce men, and then once she has them, she kind of throws them to the side. She's not unintelligent, but she does seem fairly naive about the ways of some things in the world. Joe, who is the point of view character, is pretty unempathetic. I really tried to kind of see things from his point of view, but it didn't happen. He's selfish, he's entitled, he kind of claims and intrudes on Beck before she even knows that he really exists. He's definitely a victim of the abuse cycle. He was certainly abused, but he just keeps perpetuating it, which is also interesting because there is a point in the book where he talks about Beck and her therapist as being a part of an abuse cycle, but doesn't seem to realize that he is also himself in a cycle of abuse. He is power hungry and he has sociopathic charm down. He's very charming. He's very disarming, and he can be calm in terrifying circumstances that he's creating. He plays it being normal, but you can see from the book, since you're getting his perspective, that he is definitely not. There are a couple characters in this book that are not completely abhorrent. One is Karen, who Joe gets with because he's trying to kind of get rid of his obsession of Bex. She's not a bad person. She's really assertive and she definitely knows what she wants and she voices that. She might be a little bit too clingy, but it might also just be presented that way because we're seeing life from Joe's point of view. The other character that I absolutely adore, and I can see how he could be a little bit annoying, but he is a very redeeming character in this book, is Ethan. Ethan is an employee that Joe hires for the bookstore. He's like a puppy dog. He's middle-aged, he's divorced, but he's super optimistic, and always sees the bright side of things and thinks that things could always get better. He's genuinely a good guy, and they do end up setting him up with someone in Bex's English class, and they end up, I think, getting married or moving in. But he is really sweet and adorable, and I'm glad that he's in this book just to have a little bit of relief from the insanity. So as we go through the book, we find out that this is not the first time that Joe has stalked a woman. This is not the first time that he has killed for a woman. He does end up killing Bex's ex-boyfriend. He ends up killing Peach. He ends up killing Bex. So he's not great. He's terrible, and he honestly doesn't seem to understand how terrible he is. The way that he stalks Bex is she comes into the bookstore, she's wearing a shirt with no bra, he feels a little bit seduced by her, she flirts with him a bit, he flirts back. She runs her credit card, so then he gets her name from the credit card. He tracks her down. He follows her around for a while. She ends up at this train station or subway station waiting for public transport. She's pretty tipsy. She falls into the tracks and he saves her. They end up getting a cab together. She has her phone on the seat and he steals it. She ends up buying a new phone, but the phone is paid for by her mom, and she doesn't want her mom to know that she lost her phone, so her mom keeps paying the bill. So Joe has access to her email and all of her messages and can see everything she's doing with her new phone because it's connected to the same account. So that's how he gets most of his information. He also steals things like her underwear and kind of stereotypical, like her hair clip and stuff like that. So he has this box that is full of things of hers, and he has also been printing out all of her emails and messages and stories and compiling them into a book of his own. And after they've been together for a while, she doesn't know that he killed her ex-boyfriend or Peach, her best friend, and they're kind of getting back together, and she's at his apartment and she ends up finding the box, freaks out. I thought he was going to kill her right there, but he didn't. He knocked her out and took her back to the bookstore, where in the basement they have a cage, and he locked her in there and was feeding her, and they ended up reading the Da Vinci Code together, and she really played as hard as she could. She really tricked him into thinking that she was back into him, and they were having this connection, and she ended up seducing him to come back in the cage, and they had sex. And he got up and went to the bathroom and had left the cage unlocked, and she ran up, tried to escape, tried to get help from someone, but it was like 3 in the morning and no one was there. He comes out of the bathroom and finds her and ends up killing her, even though he claims that he didn't mean to. And then the ending of the book is this other girl who was kind of a little bit of a red herring for a short amount of time. She came to the bookstore and he was like, maybe I could like someone else besides Bex. And she ends up coming into the bookstore at the very end of the story where he has a help wanted sign, and she asks if he's still hiring, and he says yes, and he's like, maybe it is time to move on from Bex. And basically that's the end of the story. So it's really unnerving. It's not a thriller in the traditional sense because you know what's happening the whole time. You know who it is. But you can't help but be scared for Bex and scared for this new girl that comes in at the end. And he never gets his comeuppance. He gets away scot-free. No one ever finds out what he did. He got away with 3 murders in this book, not counting the ones that he'd previously done before this book started. And I know that there's a sequel, but I've heard that it's pretty much more of the same, and you kind of already are used to his perspective, and it's not as jarring, the things that he does anymore. But it was a really enjoyable and terrifying book that I don't think I would necessarily read again. That's all I can really think of to say. Like I said earlier, I would give it a 4 out of 5 stars. It was a really interesting perspective and voice, and it does address something that really does happen to people, and it's scary and it's creepy, but it's interesting to see it from the point of view of the person that thinks that they're doing what's right and thinks that they're protecting their victim. That is You by Caroline Kepnes. 4 out of 5 stars. Thanks. See you next time. Bye!